Welcome to Lab 8 in the series of Ubuntu Labs. In this session, we are going to work with radio buttons, button groups, panels, and layouts. Let us take a look at the output window. In this window, we see there are a couple of radio buttons, and then they are categorized under some category. Like male and female, it is categorized under gender. Computer science, information system, computer networks, it is categorized under a department. Married and single is categorized under a category called as a status. These categories are created using button groups. The button groups ensures that from a given radio buttons option, only one is selected at a point of time. For example, here I cannot select male and female together because it is binded inside a single button group. So button groups are special things that makes the radio button have an effect of selecting only one option at any point of time. So here we have used three button groups, one for gender, one for department, and another one for status. Whenever a selection is made, we are grabbing the value and then we are displaying it inside the text area. So this means that an event is being generated whenever a particular radio button is clicked. For example, here the female radio button is clicked. So whenever the female radio button is clicked, an event is generated that is handled by an interface called as item listener, which provides us a special method called as item state change. So in the item state change method, I am going to write that take the value of the radio button which is selected and then display it inside the text area. So in this method, in this program, we are going to use an item listener because we are working with radio buttons. We are going to use action listener because we have two buttons here like done and reset. As we discussed just now that radio buttons are categorized under a button group, and then these radio buttons are attached to the panel, and the radio buttons use a special interface called as item listener, and in this program we have a text area and buttons that are using action listener. So knowing that what listener is used with the control is very important. That has been given to you as an activity before. The button group class is used to create a button group, and JRadio button is used to create a radio button. JPanel is used to put a canvas where all the controls can be placed. As we discussed that in this program we are going to implement an action listener to make the buttons interact with the user. Whenever a button is pressed, we are displaying something. So doing something logic will be written inside action perform method, which is provided by the action listener. The action perform method takes one parameter of type action event. It is also possible for us to implement more than one listener, which is the beauty of Java, to have multiple inheritance in this way without its drawbacks. The item listener provides us a method called as item state change, which is invoked whenever the radio button is pressed. And we need to have a JFrame to hold the radio buttons, button groups, and the panel with the buttons all in the same place. Time for an activity. So the question for you is to find out which listener is used to deal with the actions or event handlings related to a JPanel. So learn and remember the answer. Now let us do the same program in the NetBeans. Now let us play with the output window first. In the first category it says select your gender. So I have made a selection for the first radio button. You can see that whenever this radio button is checked, we are displaying some value inside the text area. So this is possible by using the item listener interface, and the method is item state change. So I will write the code inside the item state change saying that select the name of the radio button first and then display it in the text area. Now let us see, can I make two selections inside the same category? No, this is not possible. This is exactly the effect of the button group. The button group makes sure that there is only one selection inside this button group. So male and female is inside one button group called as gender. Similarly, the colleges, they are coupled together inside a button group called as department. And the status as well, like married and single, they are categorized under status button group. So when I click on the selections, the values are displayed, those values are displayed in the text area. When I click on the done button, we are showing a J option dialog box, J option pane dot show message dialog. Now when I click on the reset button, the values are cleared. Now let me resize this. So now let us notice what is happening. If there is no place row wise in the output window, then the components are displayed from top to bottom. Similarly, when I increase the width of the output window, we are seeing that these items are placed in the same place irrespective of the window resize. Whereas the text area and the buttons are changing. See, it is now changed. You have all the things, radio buttons, same as it is, and then the text area is coming beside it, and because there was no place to display the buttons were placed in the second row, in the next row rather. So here I want to show you that this part of the output is coupled together and it is placed inside one panel, whereas the text area is inside another panel and these two buttons are inside the third panel. So it is like I am pasting the controls to different panels. This is possible inside a single window, inside a single frame. I can have number of panels which will be attached to the J frame. Earlier we used to have only one panel, whereas in this program we have 3 panels. So absolutely no issues with the number of panels with the output. So let us see the program. There are a couple of import statements because I'm going to use a flow layout. The import is required for it. We are going to see that we are using a box layout to place the controls of the window, like the radio buttons. Item event, because we are using the item listener which uses the item event as the parameter. Item listener because we want to use the item listener here so that the radio buttons work. Item listener. Action listener is imported and then action event is used with that. JFrame, and we have JFrame label, JRadio button to create the radio buttons, button group to create the button group class, JPanel to create the JPanel, JText area and JButton similarly to create them, and J option pane to display the show message dialog. Now we have created a class called as Lab-8 underscore EX which extends the JFrame because I want to have the window for the output. It implements the action listener, item listener. So as we discussed that it is absolutely correct to have more than one interface implemented inside a single class. So here we have more than one interface implemented. As we discussed that there are three panels. One panel is for the radio button, one panel for the text area, and one panel for the button. This is absolutely up to the arrangement of your choice. You can put all the controls inside a single panel, no issues. Since we want to learn how to create panels and work with it, this is the explanation for it, and this is an example for it. We have different labels like select the gender. We have labels like select the gender, which is created by this line. We have a department, select your department to display this label. We have select your status to display this. So we have to remember these names. Now the next thing is creating the button group so that I can put the radio buttons inside this categories. Now we have created three button groups by these names: gender group, department group, and the status group. And we have created the couple of radio buttons like this, which says static J radio button, because I want to create a J radio button, and the name is MRBTN is equal to new J radio button of male. So this is the caption what will be seen beside the radio button. These things. Okay. Now we are creating one text area by name info.ta with this size, and then two buttons with the name reset and done. The declaration of the controls are done before the main method. Since we are going to use them inside the main method, they have to be static. So we made them static here. That is the reason why you see static here all the time. Now we are creating an object of the class, then setting the title for it, fixing the size for it, and using a flow layout in general with the window. And that is why this effect was there. When I was decreasing its width, when I was increasing its width, I see the components are rearranged using the flow layout. So this is the layout for the whole frame, which we are setting it here by saying frame.set layout of new flow layout. Fixing the exit on close so that the crossout buttons of the output window works when they are clicked to make the resize and the crossout button work. Setting the visibility to true of the window so that when the output is shown, the window is created and it is displayed. Otherwise, if we do not set it, then the window will be created, the output window will be created, but it will not be visible. Now here we are setting the panels with a different layout. So it is also possible for you to rearrange the components inside the window with a different layout and have one general layout for the whole window. So here we have panel, which is this panel what we have created here, radio panel. Radio panel has the box layout. The box layout constructor, here it is taking two parameters. One is the name of the component which it has to layout, and another one is the way. Like here it says that box layout dot y-axis. The box layout dot y-axis will arrange the radio panel from top to down. Similarly, here you can test x underscore axis, page underscore axis, and then line underscore axis. Every constant has a different meaning. Now let us study more about it. Box layout dot, what does the x-axis do? Let us see. It will arrange the components from left to right. Y will arrange the components from top to bottom, and that was the reason why we were seeing these are from top to bottom. Now if I change them to x_axis, it will be from left to right, like this. For example, I made it as x-axis and I made it as x-axis as well for both the panels, for the text area and for the radio panel. Now let us save this, then run it again. See, they are now arranged from left to right. Okay, so the arrangement is not very good in that arrangement, so we made it as y-axis again. So two panels are having box layout and the button panel is having a flow layout. So this example shows that different components inside the output window can have different layout. Now the simple thing what we are going to do is we are going to add the radio buttons inside the button group. So here we declared 3 button groups, like one is gender group, which is going to have male radio button and female radio button inside this. So I'm going to say gender group dot add of male radio button and gender group dot add of female radio button. So this makes the first category. These two statements makes the first category of the output. So as you can see here, this male and female, they are added to the button group for gender. And what is the name for the button group? For the gender, it is gender group dot gender group. So I'm going to say gender group dot add of radio button object. So the syntax here is the object of button group dot add of the object of radio button. Now if I do not use, see, this is making only one selection possible. Now here if I do not use this selection, for example, if I am not going to add them to the button group, what will happen? They will be still visible. Okay, let us see the effect of not adding them to the button group. See, they are created, they are visible, but both the selections are possible because they are now treated as different radio groups. So selection is possible from both of them. Now when I want to make only one of them selected at a point of time, then I have to group these two radio buttons inside a single group, which is nothing but a button group. So that is the reason why we use this statement. Now similarly, so we uncommented and then we are seeing the effect that only one selection is possible. Similarly, in the department we have 3 radio buttons which are created already before the main method. So now we are going to add them inside this category, department category. So the name of the department category is DEP group button, which is nothing but the department button group dot add of CS, IS and network buttons, radio buttons. Now for the status we have single and we have married. So these two radio buttons are added inside the status group. Now we are going to add the panels. So here we say the label should be added to the first panel. The male and female should be added to the first panel, and similarly all these controls are added, which is nothing but this part of output where you have one label and two radio buttons. So one label and two radio buttons, they are added to the panel, same panel. Similarly, we have another label and three radio buttons added to the same panel, and two radio buttons for the male and female, and the status label added to the same panel. So that is the reason why when we are resizing, the effect is being only on the different panels. See here, this panel is unchanged because we have fixed the axis for it. The text area is added to a different second panel, and then done and reset button, they are added to the third panel. And what are the different names of these panels? What we have declared here, they are RD panel, there is RD for radio button panel, TA for text area panel, and button panel for holding the buttons. So this is the way how we add component to the panel. So here the component is a label, and then we use a method add, and then we added this inside the panel which we have created already. So similarly, the radio buttons are added, the text area is added to the text panel, the buttons are added to the button panel. Now finally we are going to add the panel to the frame by saying frame dot, which is an object of the class what we have created, frame dot add of panel 1, RD panel, text area panel, and the button panel. So these three panels are added. So it is like the control is added to the panel is added to the frame. The advantage behind this is I can decide that, for example, if I have 100 controls in my output, so I can decide that 10 of them is going to be inside one panel, 10 of them is going to be inside the second panel, the later, so on. So I can decide a separate orientation or a layout for each panel. So as we saw here that this panel has a box layout, TA panel has a box layout, but button panel has a flow layout, and altogether the layout for the whole frame is flow layout. So it is absolutely possible to arrange the controls inside the output in whatever way we want. The next important thing is adding the item listener to the radio buttons. So here we are adding the item listener to the radio button objects. So these are all the radio buttons. And then we have to also add the action listener to the button, so that whenever a button is pressed, some event is being generated, like displaying the message dialog. If we do not add the item listener, or if we do not add the action listener, will the component be visible? Yes, it will be created, it will be visible, but clicking on it will not make it interactive. Clicking on it will not handle any event. So that is the reason why we have to attach the listeners, appropriate listeners with appropriate control, with the frame as a parameter. Now we already discussed that the important method provided by the item listener is item state change, that takes a parameter of type item event. Now before we do anything, let us understand what is required. The required logic is whenever a selection is made in the radio button, we want to display these values inside the we want to display the same values inside the text area. So here I have to generate an event whenever the radio button is clicked. So I will write this logic inside the item state change. So before I display anything, I will set the text for the text area to empty so that it doesn't have anything from the previous selection. Now I am going to check if male radio button is selected, do what? If female radio button is selected, what is to be done? If CS radio button is selected, what is to be done? If IS button is selected, what is to be done? So similarly, I am going to tell that if male radio button is selected, then info TA, which is the text area, dot set text. So put the text of info TA dot get text. We will come to this point after some time. So what do we want to do here? We want to say gender colon MR button dot get text. So whatever is the text with this radio button, which is male in this case, will be grabbed and it will be displayed. So here we see, let us reset. So I have selected male radio button. I see gender colon and the name of it. So the method which is going to return the text of the radio button is get text. Okay. Similarly, the female, if FRBTN dot selected, if this is selected, then what should I do? Let us forget about this for some time. I should say gender colon is F radio button dot get text. So we see that female is being changed here. Okay, now let us come to the selection of computer science from here. Now when I am clicking this if button will be executed. Sorry, this if statement will be executed. Now this if statement says that if CS radio button is selected, do what? Retain the information. Retain the information which is there already. Okay, let us reset this again. Now see what is happening when I am clicking on one of them. Their information is displayed here in the text area. So when I make another selection, computer science or information technology or computer networks, I want this to be still there. So that is the reason why we are every time writing info ta dot get text. So this was the homework given to you in the activity 6. The exactly same thing we are using here. So what will happen if we do not use this info ta dot get text? When I click on the next radio button, this value will be overridden by this value, which means that you will lose this and this will be written over it. Okay, so you can try it out. So that is the reason why we use get text for the text area every time, because we want to retain the information, we want to keep the information that we got it earlier, and plus we want to append new things, that is the information about the department, information about the status. So I have commented out this area. See what will happen if you can uncomment this and check the output. Now similarly, all the radio buttons are checked. If they are selected, those values will be displayed using the radio button dot get text and the label and a simple string with the earlier output, which was already displayed. Now this is the logic for the radio buttons to work. This is the logic for the radio buttons to work. Now let us see how to make the buttons work, which is done and reset. So I am saying if e.get source, e.getSource method will return me the information about which button is pressed. So here we have two buttons. One is reset button, another one is done button. So if a button is pressed out of 100 buttons, for example, how will I know that button 1 is pressed or a button 50th is pressed or button 100 is pressed? By saying e dot get source, which says that bring me the button which is generating an event. So if e dot get source is double equal to, or if it is equal to the reset button, do what? Clear all the selections. So how do we clear the selections? We will just go to the button group and say dot clear selection, clear selection. So you see everything is lost and all the selection from the reader buttons are lost, and then the info ta dot set text is empty. So that is the reason how this was working. When I say reset, all the radio button selections are gone and the text written inside the text field is also, text area is also gone. This was the case when the event source is reset. If the event source is done, which is this part, do what? If the event source is this, do what? So if male radio button is selected or female radio button is selected, if any one of them is selected, and if the CS or IS or CN radio buttons is selected, and if single or married radio button is selected, we are going to say J option pane dot show message dialog of this message registration succeed. This is the title and this is the message, and then we want to have a J option pane of type information message. Else we are going to say select your status and we are going to say error. Okay, so this logic is helping me to find out that if something is not selected, for example, if I do not select the gender and I try to register, then it will tell me that select the gender, there is an error otherwise. Okay, so here when I see I selected only the gender, I did not selected the department, I did not selected the status, and then I try to register it by saying done, it is saying select your department. So when I select the department and then I click on done, it is saying select your status. So how is this possible using this if and else logic? Now when I do not select anything and I click on the done button, you see the title is error and then the message is select your gender. And then what is the type of the dialog box? When there is an error, it is error underscore message. So you will see there is this icon change. This is for error. Now when all the selections are made, we are going to say the information, this icon is changed. So this is message underscore error or message underscore error underscore message and information underscore message. So hope you understood, and thank you for watching.